Hello and welcome to Media MD, your fortnightly Doof Network dose of media that you have somehow missed. I'm Ruben Morehouse.
I'm Elliot Diebold.
And we are back to talk about Hercules.
Yeah.
Disney's Hercules.
The Disney musical version, because I'm frankly disappointed in myself for not bringing up Kevin Sorbo's masterpiece series in reference to Hercules.
You're disappointed.
Week. I loved that series so much growing up.
Yeah.
But
that's all I know of it, is that one meme.
But do you know the story behind that bit?
So, as I've heard, and maybe this is apocryphal. So hold on. Audience, what we're talking about here is, let me explain. So, in this TV show Hercules, there's this bit where the main character, Hercules, just kind of looks at the sky and yells out, "Disappointed!" And I think the story that I've heard is that was meant to be like a stage direction or something, that he's meant to like look disappointed, but he just says it out loud instead. And I guess they left it in. I don't really know why, but it's a great video. You should all check it out.
Yeah, Kevin Sorbo misread the stage direction as a line that he was meant to say, and so he sort of finishes off this scene by just yelling out "disappointed." I think it was in one of the movies from memory, which is so the series actually started as 5 movies that were made on an insanely low budget. So I think that's why it's left in there, but it's just great material.
So what would you give Hercules out of 10, Elliot?
The old TV show. Well, with nostalgia as a factor, like an 8.
All right. Well, that's our episode.
It was like the only thing I watched as a kid. I used to watch it and Xena on repeat.
So what are we talking about next fortnight, Elliot?
Yeah. So before we go, we should talk about the other
Let's talk about
Hercules.
the one that we're actually meant to talk about, which is the Disney's animated movie, Hercules.
Yeah, the 1997 Hercules. So I mean, it's to do the sort of plot summary stuff. It's a Disney musical that sort of takes the Hercules journey and ties it into the original Superman film. It's just the original Superman film, but he's Hercules.
Like learning how to be a hero, I guess.
Yeah, like
who's the trainer in the original Superman film?
Like the ghost of his Kryptonian dad, kind of.
Yeah, sure.
There's not as much of that stuff. He's just kind of more of a natural hero. There's not a Danny DeVito character, which is one of the many reasons this is a better film.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
But you don't need to see that Superman movie now because you've watched this Hercules film and they're very similar.
Yeah, I quite liked, I found myself enjoying this film on a structural level because I used to really love reading the Greek myths when I was younger. And this story basically is the 12 trials of Hercules or whatever it is. But they managed to find a way to actually make them a natural progression of a single plot and even work in some other stuff. Like there's what is I think a pretty blatant reference to Orpheus and Eurydice with Hercules and Meg in this story as well. It's just kind of an amalgamation of Hercules stories and some other Greek myths all kind of thrown in there together. And I think it actually works structurally surprisingly well, considering that it's a bit of a mishmash of this stuff.
Yeah, what's interesting, like you brought up the 12 trials because 11 of them happen in a montage, and also the other one kind of happens early. It's like the Hydra, and it's not even necessarily. Yeah, like I do agree. Like they take a lot of liberties with the Greek mythology, and that's like fine. It's a kids Disney adaptation. Yeah. I think it stood out to me because as a kid growing up, my first experience with stories like The Little Mermaid or Pocahontas was through the Disney movies, and then as you become an adult you learn that there's actually usually darker mythology or in the case of Pocahontas just a darker, more depressing real life story behind what Disney put together. And for us, Hercules is the other way around because we grew up with the actual Greek mythology and now we're seeing the Disney version, and it's the only time I've gone that way to one of these stories is knowing the real life version before stepping into the Disney one. Yeah,
me too. With the exception of the later ones like Tangled, where it's kind of like, of course I know Rapunzel beforehand now that I'm an adult, but you're right. And there's bits where I found that really working for me. Like I remember some of the earlier trials of Hercules he deals with a stable that's just full of shit, and that's one of his trials. And there's like a throwaway line where Danny DeVito says, "Oh, this guy wants you to clean out his stable unstable, so you might better wear some, heavy work boots or something. And I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I get that reference. That's fun.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, reference humor is one of the core parts of this film. Like,
Yeah.
there's I mean, the one I've got written down here in my notes is where they bring out the Air Hercs,
Yeah.
which is just like a blatant Air Jordan ripoff, and there's a lot of stuff like that. Like, I think this movie, and it's been a while since I watched Aladdin, but that's the only one that I can remember being even close to this blatant with just, like, I guess, 90s reference humor.
Well, yeah, I obviously didn't get this when I first watched it because I didn't really know what New York was. But very explicitly, this movie is set in fantasy New York.
They call it the Big Olive.
Yes, it's called the Big Olive, which is a joke that I really love. And also, when they first enter the city, Danny DeVito's character says, "Hey, I'm walking here," which is so classic. And then I was actually like, how did I not know that this was just set in fantasy New York? I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason a lot of that stuff works is I mean, they're not being too creative with it. Like, it was so obviously New York that it kind of swung back around to being funny to me.
It gave me kind of Flintstones vibes of like, we're just basically taking this thing and showing you what the alternate reality version of it is, which I know is kind of simple, but it still is like, it just works sometimes,
Yeah, well, simple but effective is really the cornerstone of a lot of these Disney children's movies, and that's what they're doing here. I think so. Something we should talk about here. Obviously,
we never really talked about the plot. Should we do the plot?
Oh yeah, I suppose. Well, I mean, so the plot is Hercules is born, and he's actually the son of Zeus and Hera.
Yes,
which,
there's no cheating on your god wife in this one. Actually, Zeus is pretty much a stand-up guy, which is not his traditional characterization.
Yeah. But again, that's one of those artistic liberties where I'm like, yes, this works better in the film.
Yeah, he doesn't turn into a swan or a bull or anything in this film, which I was disappointed by.
But yeah, so basically, Hercules. Hades finds out that Hades is the bad guy in this. First of all, Hades is plotting to overthrow Olympus, and he talks to the sisters of the Fates, and they basically are like, "Oh, Hercules is gonna, beat you." So he tries to turn Hercules. Well, he tries to kill Hercules. Doesn't work. He just turns Hercules mostly mortal.
He's mortal, but has his super strength, and also realistically is a bit more. Invulnerable than most immortals would be.
Yeah, classic brute classification, really.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I mean, from there, Hercules manages to survive. Hades doesn't know, so it goes for kind of 18 years. Hercules has grown up. He finds out he's the son of Zeus, and that if he can become a true hero, he gets to become a god again. So he sets out to become a true hero. He hires Danny DeVito to train him. He meets Meg, who is the love interest / she actually works for Hades.
Yep, she's the Delilah in this story.
I'm pretty convinced that the original draft of this movie might have had Meg as the main character because she's far and away the most interesting person in the whole film.
She is fascinating, isn't she? She. I mean, this is a '97 film, so we weren't in super progressive times. We were doing okay, I guess. But Meg is very mumuch a pretty good example of what is not a traditional Disney hero, right?
Yeah, well, she's just like, because so Danny DeVito's character he's like a sleazebag, but he also wants to train heroes.
Yep, he's your basic boxing coach kind of vibe.
Yeah. And then like Hercules is just kind of like you've your heroic hero character. Like I've never found them particularly compelling.
There's not much depth to them, I don't think.
No, whereas like for me, like this film would have been a lot worse without Meg. I found her arc to be far and away the most interesting because it's really the only one that properly exists. Beyond just I want to be a hero. Oh, I am now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like her whole thing, and it's a bit of a cliche as well. It's hardly an original thing, but this movie does the whole it turns out she was secretly betraying her love the whole time. It's like it started as a con, but she actually fell in love with him, and that's usually a very painful plot device for me. But I kind of found it worked here. So yeah, that's basically what happens. Hercules becomes a bit of a hero. Meg is sent by Hades to find out his weakness. She ends up falling for him, and so Hades uses that and tries to attack Olympus. He succeeds, but then Hercules kind of lucks his way into getting his powers back and goes up and then defeats the Titans.
Well,
sort of.
he kind of outsmarts Hades, but in a way that is confusing enough that you're not really sure if it was intentional or not.
You know what I think would have been better for this is if Meg had not like sacrificed, like, you know how she pushes. Yeah. What happens is basically Hercules makes the deal where if Meg doesn't get harmed for 24 hours, he won't have his strength. And then as Hercules is about to get injured, Meg pushes him out of the way and gets landed on by the pillar herself, although she comes out of it pretty okay considering the size of that pillar.
Yep.
And because she gets hurt, Hercules gets his powers back, which kind of proves what a stupid deal it was for Hades to make. Like, he should have been clearer that it was his. This is the Pact reader in me coming out.
Yeah. Read the fine print on this deal next time, Hades, for sure.
But like, I think it kind of would have worked even better for me if it hadn't been Meg pushing Hercules out of danger himself. But I don't know. Like, now I'm second guessing this idea because I want to say, like, I'm basically suggesting self-harm, which is, like, obviously not good. But
it could be done in a very minor way. Like, if she just kind of scratches her arm, for example.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, if it had been her sacrificing herself, I don't know, maybe I'm changing my mind as I'm trying to make this case. I think maybe they did do it right. But Meg kind of sacrifices herself showing she actually did care about Hercules, and then he gets his powers back. He goes to Olympus, where he frees Zeus, and then it turns out they didn't really need him anyway, because he doesn't. Like, they just beat the Titan. Like, I don't understand what changes between the Titans beating the Olympians, and then Hercules rescues them, and then they just beat the Titans really easily from there. I don't understand. I mean, Hercules must just have some sort of morale boosting power.
Yeah, that was his other power that they didn't touch on that much. Is he really boosts morale. No, you're right. There are bits of this that are a bit kind of like, and now it's this part of the movie where the heroes win, and so you won, yay.
Yeah, it's kind of easy fodder to pick at when we're talking about, like, a kids Disney movie, I suppose. But yeah, that's basically what happens. And then, like, I think the one bit of Hercules' journey which was predictable but is still satisfying is he gets to become a god, but Meg can't come, so he decides to stay mortal to be with her.
Yes.
It's nice. Like, it's a cliche for a reason. It works, and everything sort of ends.
Yeah, there are a few bits like that where Hercules almost has compelling character development, but it doesn't quite land. I think something that I quite liked was there's a bit where Hercules actually just full-on slaps Danny DeVito and clearly injures him, and it's this kind of recurring motif that happened earlier in the story and then was kind of dropped of Hercules can't control his own strength. And there could have been a better way to weave that all together that led to some better developments for him, and it doesn't quite land as satisfyingly as you want, but again, it's a 97 Disney movie, so you're not going to be too harsh of a judge, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know, I think you could probably cut Danny DeVito's character out of the film.
How dare you, Elliot? No, I mean, you probably could from a plot perspective, but he brings so much charisma to the film that I think it would be a mistake overall.
They do give him a song, though. I mean, we've got to move into the songs at some point. And what better way than launching with Danny DeVito's song, which is, I mean, it's there.
Yeah, he's obviously not a great singer. He does a good job, and it is fine.
Like, I think with the exception of that one, I kind of loved all the music in this. Like, there's not as much as I thought. Like, when I think of most of these Disney musical movies, there's usually 6 or 7 songs.
Well, it starts out quite heavy on the music, but then it fades off as it continues. I actually quite liked. I mean, so the start to this movie, I think, is so good. It starts and there's this kind of stodgy old narrator, and you feel like it's going to start up as a sappy documentary, and then they explicitly call that out and break it and introduce the actual narrators of this film, who are the 5 muses. And they have this really, really, really entertaining sequence to start off the movie that is also really beautifully animated, and I just really found myself getting into it.
Yeah, that, like, they managed to fit in so much boring backstory that was just kind of monologued out by dressing it up in the song and a kind of
jazzy, funky intro song.
Well, and you're right, like the fantastic animation, like the way things were popping in and out of the vases as we're kind of tracking through this museum was like an absolutely great scene to watch.
Yeah, I really thought that animation in this movie really had some incredible moments. I think Mount Olympus and the Underworld were so interestingly designed, and maybe it is just the fact that Greek mythology is a really captivating kind of fantasy setting, but they were so beautiful and fun to look at.
Yeah, well, I think something that's funny about this movie is I always thought the animation style looked really weird whenever because you'd see like memes or whatever or screenshots of it around, and I always thought the animation style looked off. Whereas now, having watched the film, I actually really like it. So I think I was maybe just missing the grander context of how it works in the film. Like Hades and his like fire hair is another great example of something that is just a great stylistic choice that carries throughout the entire film.
Yeah. Yeah, that hair is very lively. And it really adds to his character.
Yeah, and like, you know, the humans themselves, like Hercules looks like a classic Disney animated human crossed with like a statue of Hercules.
Yeah, the way that characters just look like they could be on a vase most of this movie is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's a great choice.
I think there's this bit that I really liked where he's fighting the Hydra and he kind of falls into this mess of heads, and it suddenly just becomes all kind of red and grim and bizarre, and it just made me think, man, this animation is so beautiful. And most of the time it's a bit more standard than that, but sometimes they really just go wild with it. Or in this intro scene with the muses, sometimes they'll just kind of freak out. There's like this weird, hectic, unsettling vibe where they suddenly just are really energetic. And it's so strange and like captivating. I loved it.
Yeah, same. Something else I noticed, like just jumping back to the songs quickly, like a lot of the songs were quite split up. Like I don't like, you know, there's usually like if I think more about stage musicals or even some of the Disney ones, you have you'll have a song in the first act, and then it's sort of, you know, musical motifs will get repeated in other parts, and there might even be, you know, the reprise later. Whereas Hercules didn't follow that structure at all. Like we already talked about how the first half is very song heavy. With this one, it was like the gospel truth kind of gets reused 3 times in sort of the first half, and then like Going the Distance is referenced at various points throughout the thing, and it's used as background music as well as sort of being sort of mini reprised. But it was interesting how I thought most of the songs in this were very good, but even including their reprises, they're all so front loaded into the movie.
Yeah, I do wish there was more music. I mean, I think, you know, they really set the bar pretty high with the first song, and then they don't. I mean, they have other songs that are fine, but there's not that many of them, and they're not as good as the first song in my mind, and so it's kind of like, yeah, okay, well.
I think I liked Meg's one the best. I don't know what the actual title of it is, but the one where she's refusing to admit that she actually likes Hercules and the muses are kind of hassling her to do it. Like, I actually thought that was a really good song. Like, just from a music perspective, like I found it very catchy. I'll probably be singing that one a lot over the next few months.
Yeah, fair enough. It's hard to think about holistically what I thought about this movie, because I did really enjoy it, but also I think there are flaws with it.
Yeah. It's a bit all over the place, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it's a bit messy.
Like just what you said before about how there are definitely moments where it's like, and we're doing this part of the movie now, and it's like, okay, sure.
Yeah. I did like it though. I mean, I quite liked it. It just, I feel like, and maybe it's being too harsh on it because it is, you know, what it is. It's one of these Disney movies, and, you know, I think even the ones that are really, really beloved, like your Lion Kings and your Aladdins, have these same problems.
Yeah, it's hard to know how much like our nostalgia blinders are on when we watch those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I liked it. I really liked it. I wish there were more music in it. That's, I think, something that an easy criticism that I would levy is I wanted it to be more musical.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But like overall, like it's simple and it's fun. Like it would sort of be my summary. Like, yeah, I enjoyed it, even seeing it, you know, at this age. Like it, the formulas that they were using to pump these things out in the 90s were successful for a reason.
Yeah,
it's just pretty good.
Weirdly, here's something about it. I've gone back and watched some of these other movies, like Lion King, which is a movie that I actually don't think holds up that well, and people are probably going to come after me a bit for that because it is like the most beloved of them. But I actually found myself enjoying this now contemporarily more than I contemporarily enjoy The Lion King, and I don't know what that is. I think The Lion King is a better made movie, but this one just got to me more, and maybe it's the musical nature of it, because the musical scape of this one, like the vibe of the songs is so fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I really liked it though. And to quantify out of 10, or out of X, I should say, I feel like I'd give this a VI out of X.
So you just reminded me of the joke where the two kids are stuck under the rock, and one of them says, "Somebody call IXII."
It took me so long to get
joke.
Like, what the fuck? Oh, yeah. Roman numerals. What is it? 911. Okay, cool. I was like, and I was like 10 seconds behind the film at this point.
It's such a perfect eye roll joke.
Yeah, totally.
I loved it because it was stupid. Yeah. Okay. Well, on my side, I'm gonna give it a VII.
Okay, so you liked it about I more than I did, but that's should be expected. Yeah. Cool.
I mean, for anyone who doesn't speak Roman numerals, that was 7 and 6. I mean,
yes.
You just joked about how hard it was for you to get that joke in the movie, and
this is a thinking man's show, okay, Elliot? Let the audience do some of the work, huh?
Okay, sorry, forget what I said.
Thank you, A Bird, for bringing it to us, though. It's always fun to dive back into some of these kinds of movies. It was very fun to rewatch Hercules, so thanks for bringing it to us.
Yeah, I got a lot out of that. I'm gonna go find out if I'm missing any other Disney animated
Disney classics.
Musicals
but yeah, that was a really fun movie. So what's the next really fun, atmospheric, engaging, fun, fresh, jazzy, funky thing that we're going to talk about, Elliot?
Yeah, obviously with those of you who followed Deep Impact will know that that's coming to a close, unfortunately. This week, in a few days, we're going to be doing a 24-hour live stream. And there's a lot of sadness mixed in to that because we're finishing something that we've put a lot of ourselves into. So I wanted to...
We want something uplifting to counteract that?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm bringing the movie Grave of the Fireflies.
Mm-hmm.
Which is an anime, which of course is a
fun
staple.
Yeah. Love a good anime.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a Studio Ghibli film, although it doesn't involve Miyazaki.
Interesting.
It's just sort of from that studio, but it's not a Miyazaki film. As you've alluded to, you are of course aware of the fact, and I'm sure most people are, that this is not a happy, fun time.
Well, okay, movie. So literally the only thing I know about this film is every time there's like a thread on Reddit or something where people are like, oh, what's the saddest movie of all time? What's a movie that really made you sad? This movie always comes up, and I've never watched it or found out anything about it other than it always makes people really sad. So I'm really excited that you've brought it to this happy, fun show.
Yeah, and in fact, I kind of almost want to leave the prescription there in some ways because I went into this blind and it hit me pretty hard because of that. Like, I don't want to tell you too much going in. I will just sort of say it's it's sort of set back in the Second World War, which obviously
Okay, I see what's happening here.
I'll leave it there. Just
and it's I'm assuming it takes place somewhere in Japan.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I see where we're going here, Elliot.
So yeah, it's an intense film. I think it does a really, really fantastic job at setting the tone it's going for, which is a very, upsetting one. But it's a very effective movie. There are quite a few anime films that I've really liked over the years, and I think this is the one that would probably take the cake. In that regard, I don't think anything else has hit me this hard.
Okay. I don't think that's necessarily a good review, a recommendation, but I'm sure there are a lot of things to really enjoy and appreciate about this film, and so we can talk about those and not just about how sad it is. Any other stuff that you want to warn us about before we go in, I suppose?
No. I think this is. I think you're going to enjoy this movie. I think everyone enjoys it. It is very good. I just want to make sure people are ready for the fact that it's don't sit down expecting a fun family romp like we just experienced.
Okay, well, we'll do that, and we'll talk about it in a fortnight. I know I'm gonna get things out of it. I'm just daunted by sitting down knowing it's gonna make me sad. If you want to be sad, why not follow us on Twitter, which is just a sad place to be. Not our Twitter, though. Our Twitter's fun and happy, unlike all other Twitters. So go to @MediaMD Podcast and you can follow the show.
Yeah, well, actually, because, yes, while this episode's out, I've already done my last live read, which will I'm assuming my last packed live read will be sad. But then after that, it's going to be a happy place again. So,
Yay! Well, until we start tweeting about Grave of the Fireflies. I'll do a live watch of that and we'll bring it back down again.
You can also leave us a review on iTunes. Every review helps us get into the algorithm, and then the algorithm spits out recommendations to other people, and they might come along and listen.
Yeah.
And the more we grow, the more time and effort we can dedicate into making this podcast as good as we can.
Yeah, totally. If you want to leave us your thoughts on Grave of the Fireflies, you can shoot us an email at mediamdpodcast@gmail.com. Or if you head to mediamdpodcast.com, there's a little microphone button and you can send us a voice message, which is what a bird did, our patron who got us to watch Hercules. Thanks, a bird. You can be just like a bird and do that.
Yes. And speaking of patrons, Doof, which we are a proud member of, is entirely sponsored by our patrons. So if you head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia, you can see all the awesome stuff you get for becoming one of our patrons. There's a bunch of cool perks. We have
Hey,
Doof
Elliot,
and chill
hold
sessions.
On. Are you telling me that I don't just get all this great content? If I support the content I love, I also get other cool things too?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I'm going to go do it right now. I'm back. I did it.
Whew. Okay, well, that's one down. Now it's your turn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm staring at the listener, but
pointing.
You can't see it
I'm pointing at my camera right
now. Yeah. So
so go do it. Yeah, I've shown you that it's possible. I just tried it. It worked. So you can do it too. For links to all these things that we just mentioned, you can head to doofmedia.com. That'll link you to our Twitter, all our episodes, our Patreon, all that good stuff. Oh, and on there is also the previous clues for the Media MD ARG, where you can help us figure out just who is Dr. MD and why is man so strong. Elliot, why don't you tell the listeners this fortnight's clue?
Purell.
Purell, and we'll see you next fortnight.